When my husband told me he wanted a divorce, I thought nothing could shock me anymore. I was wrong. He sat across from me, cold and confident, and said the words I'll never forget. I want the house, the cars, the money, everything. Except our son. Everyone thought I'd break down. My lawyer begged me to fight. But I didn't. I said just one sentence that made everyone stare at me like I'd lost my mind. Give it all to him. What my husband didn't know was that he'd already taken something he should have never touched. And it was about to destroy him. Stay with us, this story will leave you shocked. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. I still remember the sound before anything else, the sharp, impatient knock on the front door. It wasn't the way my husband Michael usually came home, humming or shouting for our son, tossing his keys in the bowl like always. No, this knock was cold. Mechanical. A warning I didn't yet understand. When I opened the door, a man in a grey suit stood there holding a thick stack of papers. "Mrs. Carter?" he asked. My voice barely came out. "Yes." He handed me the envelope. "You've been served." Just like that. No explanation. No hesitation. He turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared into a black SUV idling at the curb. I stood frozen in the doorway, clutching the papers as if they were burning my hands. A late afternoon breeze brushed past me, but I felt nothing. Only numbness. Michael was sitting calmly at the kitchen table when I walked in. He didn't look surprised. Didn't look nervous. He was stirring sugar into his coffee like he was discussing weekend plans. "You got them?" he asked. "Got them?" As if this were package delivery. I set the envelope down. "Michael, what is this?" "A divorce," he said simply. "It's time." Time. As if the last 12 years had been a temporary arrangement he'd finally decided to cancel. My fingers trembled as I opened the papers. The words blurred at first: petition, dissolution, distribution of assets. But then one line sharpened into focus. He wanted everything. The house. Both cars. The savings. The investment accounts. Even the furniture. Everything except our son. My throat tightened. "You're taking everything. Why?" He didn't flinch. "Because I earned it. Because I should have left years ago. Because you'll be fine without it." His voice wasn't angry. It was indifferent. As if he'd rehearsed this speech in front of the mirror until it felt natural. I stared at him, trying to recognize the man I married. "And Jacob? You don't even want custody?" Michael shrugged. "I'm too busy. He's better off with you." My heartbeat thudded painfully, shock, confusion, betrayal all merging into one suffocating wave. I should have screamed. Should have cried. Should have demanded answers. Instead, I sat down slowly across from him, hands still shaking. In that moment, I realized something chilling. My husband wasn't just leaving me. He was erasing me. Erasing the life we built. Erasing the woman who believed he'd never do this. And the worst part. He enjoyed watching it happen. People always said Michael and I looked like the perfect couple. At parties, neighbors would smile at us the way people do when they believe they're witnessing something rare: compatibility, harmony, a love built on trust. They didn't see the cracks, of course. Cracks don't show in photographs or polite greetings. We met when I was 24. I was working the morning shift at a downtown cafe, saving money to finish my degree. He walked in wearing a navy blue suit, confident in a way that made the room tilt slightly. Michael Carter. Handsome, charming, the kind of man who could talk anyone into anything without ever raising his voice. He left his business card in the tip jar. "Call me," he'd written. "I'd like to take you somewhere better than this place." I did call. And our first date felt like magic. Dinner at a rooftop restaurant I'd only ever seen in magazines, Michael leaning in close, telling me I deserved the world. I believed him. God, I believed him so easily. We married 2 years later. A small ceremony. A rented hall. I wore my grandmother's lace dress, and he kissed me like he meant forever. For a long time, I thought he did. Michael's career took off quickly after that. Promotions, bonuses, recognition. He liked being admired. Liked the attention. And I liked supporting him. I stayed home when Jacob was born, telling myself it was temporary, that I'd finish school once things settled. Things never settled. Michael liked having me at home. Liked coming back to a clean house, dinner ready, a son who ran into his arms. "You make my life easier," he would say. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like a partner and started feeling like a quiet fixture in his world. Useful, invisible, necessary only when convenient. Still, I held on to the good moments, lakeside picnics, movie nights, the way he used to tuck Jacob into bed. I clung to the memory of the man I married, refusing to see how far he'd drifted from him. People saw our family photos and thought we were lucky. They saw a nice house, a successful husband, a smiling wife. They didn't see the loneliness behind my eyes. They didn't hear the arguments whispered behind closed doors. They didn't notice how often Michael traveled for work, or how his phone suddenly never left his hand. I told myself it was stress. That marriages go through phases. That love can survive pressure. What I didn't know then, what I didn't want to admit, was that Michael wasn't drifting. He was preparing to leave. Ruthlessly. Quietly. And with a plan far colder than I could ever imagine. Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. Bright, glaring, impossible to miss. But love has a way of blurring edges, softening truths, and convincing you that shadows are just tricks of the light. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday. Michael came home late, much later than usual. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loose, his hair a little too messy for a simple meeting. When I asked where he'd been, he gave a practiced sigh and said, "Don't start, Emily. It was a long day." I apologized. As if concern was an offense. Then there were the phone calls. He started stepping outside to answer them, pacing on the porch with his voice low, the kind of low reserved for conversations meant to be hidden. If I walked out with a cup of tea, he'd end the call abruptly, pretending it was nothing. One night, Jacob accidentally grabbed Michael's phone instead of mine while it was buzzing on the counter. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. Claire W. Michael snatched it quickly, almost violently. "She's a coworker," he snapped when I asked. "Don't be dramatic." I let it go. Because asking too many questions suddenly meant I was insecure. Paranoid. Difficult. Another crack formed when Michael began buying things we didn't need, expensive colognes, designer shirts, new watches. Thousands of dollars gone without warning. When I brought up our budget, he brushed it off with that same patronizing smile. "You wouldn't understand investment decisions. Just leave the finances to me." Except he used to ask for my input. Used to sit with me at the table as we planned our future together. Now he acted like my brain had been replaced with air. And dinners. God, the dinners hurt the most. We used to talk about everything, the people in our lives, our dreams, the funny things Jacob said. Slowly, our conversations became one-sided. "How was your day?" I'd ask. "Fine." Always just fine. No details. No warmth. No curiosity about mine. I should have pushed harder, but every time I tried, he shut down. Or picked a fight. Or implied I was overreacting. So I convinced myself it was temporary. Work stress. Burnout. Maybe even aging hitting him strangely. Anything but the truth that lingered like fog between us. And then came the final crack, the one I couldn't ignore. A hotel receipt tucked inside the pocket of his slacks. 2 dinners. 2 drinks. 1 room. Not mine. My stomach had dropped, but when I confronted him, he smiled, and told me it was a business client. A lie so lazy it should have shattered me. But instead, I smoothed the receipt, placed it back in his pocket, and pretended I believed him. Because I wasn't ready to see my marriage collapsing. Not yet. The night I discovered the truth didn't begin with suspicion. It began with silence, heavy, endless silence that wrapped around the house after Jacob fell asleep. Michael had texted earlier, working late. "Don't wait up." A message so familiar I barely reacted. But then, around 10:45 p.m., I heard a sound from the laundry room. A buzz. His second phone. The one he claimed he used only for work emergencies. Michael had left it at home. I should have ignored it. Should have respected privacy, boundaries, whatever people call it. But something deeper, instinct, fear, survival, pushed me toward it. A notification lit up the screen. Can't stop thinking about tonight. Same room next week. Red heart # C. My breath caught painfully. My vision blurred. My hands shook as if they no longer belonged to me. I opened the message thread. There they were, months of texts. Months of I miss you. Months of she doesn't suspect a thing. Months of hotel rooms, secret dinners, whispers typed into a glowing screen. Claire W. The name from the missed call. The unknown co-worker. The ghost haunting the edges of our marriage. The next message was a photo. Claire, leaning against a hotel bed, smiling. Wearing Michael's shirt. The shirt I ironed that morning. Something inside me broke, not loudly, not violently, but quietly, like a soft tear you don't notice until everything falls apart. I backed away from the phone as though it were poisonous. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't stand. I sank to the floor, the cold tiles pressing against my palms, grounding me in a reality I desperately wanted to escape. Michael returned home past midnight. He smelled of cologne, not his usual one, but something sweeter, more expensive. He kissed my cheek, a mechanical gesture, and walked upstairs without noticing the red in my eyes. I followed him. Long day at work. My voice was steady, far steadier than I felt. He didn't look up while taking off his tie. Exhausting. I'm dead. Who's Claire? I asked softly. The tie froze halfway through his fingers. He turned slowly, calculating. Who? He said, too quickly. Claire. The one who misses you. The one from the hotel room. His face remained still, expressionless, as if he'd practiced for this moment. A client, Emily. A difficult client. You're reading too much into things again. Again. He threw the blame like always, a shield he believed would protect him. But not this time. I saw the messages, I whispered. All of them. For a fraction of a second, panic flickered in his eyes, but it vanished quickly, replaced by irritation. You violated my privacy, he snapped. Unbelievable. Privacy. He said it like I was the criminal. Like I was the one who had broken vows. I stared at him, the man I once thought was my forever, and realized something chilling. Michael wasn't sorry. Not even close. He wasn't ashamed or remorseful or afraid of losing us. He was just angry he got caught. And in that moment, I understood. This affair wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. A carefully constructed exit strategy. And I was simply an obstacle he was preparing to walk over. The first divorce meeting was held in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and cold ambition. Michael walked in wearing his best suit, the one he bought for important events, his jaw tight, his eyes cold, his posture radiating superiority. He didn't look at me. Didn't even acknowledge I existed. His lawyer, a sharp-featured woman with a voice like steel, opened a folder and slid a thick packet across the table. This, she said, is Mr. Carter's proposed division of assets. My lawyer, Daniel, skimmed it first. His eyebrows shot up immediately. You're joking, he muttered under his breath. What does it say? I asked. Daniel took a long breath. He wants everything. Everything. The word felt like a physical blow. The house we bought together. The cars we paid off slowly over years. The savings account we built with discipline. The retirement fund. The furniture. The vacation timeshare his parents gifted us. Even the piano my mother left me in her will. He wanted it all. I swallowed hard. What about Jacob? Michael finally looked at me, cold, bored, irritated. You can have him. The room spun. The air thinned. You don't want custody. He shrugged, as if the question annoyed him. Emily, I work 60 hours a week. I travel. I have responsibilities. You're better suited for parenting. Besides, Claire doesn't want children right now. Claire. Her name hung in the air like a rotten perfume. My lawyer leaned forward, incredulous. You're asking for 100% of the marital assets while giving up full custody. Michael didn't blink. Correct. Judges don't approve settlements like this, Daniel said flatly. It's absurd. Michael smirked, a small, satisfied curl of his lip, the kind he used to make when he believed he'd outsmarted someone. They will, he said confidently. Once Emily signs. Sign. I whispered. You expect me to sign this? He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. You don't have a job. You left your degree unfinished. Everything you have is because of me. So yes, sign it. It's fair. Fair. That word, once so gentle, felt like a dagger in my chest. Daniel looked at me, ready to fight. Ready to tear the proposal apart. Ready to defend me with everything he had. But something inside me shifted. A strange calm washed over me, steady and cold like deep water. I met Michael's eyes that once saw me as a partner, a lover, a friend. Now they looked at me like I was just paperwork he wanted to get rid of. Slowly, so slowly even Daniel didn't understand at first, I closed the folder. And then I said the words no one expected. Fine, I whispered. He can have everything. Michael's smirk deepened, triumphant. He thought he had just won. But he had no idea what he was really taking. The news spread faster than I expected. Within 2 days, everyone in my life knew that Michael had demanded everything, and that I'd agreed to it without a single objection. My sister Sarah was the first to storm into my house, her eyes blazing. You're not signing that, Emily, she said, slamming the folder on the table. This is insane. He cheated on you. He humiliated you. And now you're just handing him your entire life. I didn't respond. I just stirred my tea slowly, watching the steam rise. She grabbed my wrist. Emily, look at me. Fight back. Please. I met her eyes. I am fighting. No, you're surrendering. I almost smiled. If only she knew. The second person to confront me was my lawyer. Daniel showed up with more urgency than I'd ever seen from him. He tossed his briefcase down and paced the living room like a man about to argue in front of the Supreme Court. Emily, he said, running a hand through his hair. I've handled divorce cases for 18 years. I've seen every kind of betrayal. Every kind of greed. But I've never seen a settlement this one-sided. If we take this to court, we'll destroy him. You'll get the house, the savings, child support, alimony, everything he's hiding. I don't want it, I whispered. Daniel froze. Why not? I took a slow breath. Because he doesn't know what he's taking. He stared at me, confused, frustrated, helpless. At least tell me why. Give me something. I shook my head. Not yet. The third person was my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, the woman who brought me casseroles when Jacob was born and cried with me when my mother passed away. She sat beside me, her wrinkled hand covering mine gently. Dear, she said softly, a man like Michael, he won't stop at taking things. He'll take your spirit too, if you let him. I squeezed her hand. He already took enough. Her eyes filled with tears. Then don't let him win. But what she didn't understand, what no one understood, was that this wasn't Michael winning. This was Michael walking directly into the storm he created. The final confrontation came from someone I didn't expect. My father. A quiet man. A thoughtful man. A man who rarely raised his voice, until that day. He stood in my kitchen, fists clenched, trembling with fury. He abandoned you, he said, voice cracking. He betrayed you. And now he wants to take the life you built together. Over my dead body. I hugged him, feeling his shoulders tremble. Dad. I have a plan. He pulled back, searching my face. A plan? Yes. Does it involve letting him win? I shook my head. No. It involves letting him think he's winning. My father's expression slowly shifted from confusion to realization, then to a small, determined nod. Then, he whispered, Make him believe it. And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. Everyone thought I was surrendering. But the truth. I was waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment. To let everything fall exactly where it needed to. The night after the meeting, after everyone had pleaded, argued, begged me to rethink my decision, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The same table Michael wanted to claim in the divorce. The same table where, once upon a time, he held my hands and made promises he would later break. The divorce papers lay open in front of me, my signature line glaring like an accusation. But I wasn't afraid. I wasn't confused. And I wasn't surrendering. I was waiting for the moment all the pieces aligned. Because Michael wasn't taking everything. He was taking something specific. Something he didn't understand. Something he assumed was gold when, in reality, it was a ticking bomb he'd been building with his own arrogance for years. I thought back to the moment I first realized our finances didn't look right. It was almost 2 years ago. One of Michael's investment accounts, one he never wanted me to touch, had a sudden freeze. At the time, he claimed it was a banking glitch. But when the freeze lifted weeks later, the statements revealed transfers, large ones, moving from that account into another under his sole name. He thought I never saw those statements. He was wrong. Because months later, when I found receipts, credit card debt, and unexplained withdrawals tied to his business dealings, a quiet alarm went off inside me. Not panic. Not anger. Something sharper. Awareness. Michael had been committing small financial violations for years, moving money improperly, dodging tax responsibilities, blending personal and business funds, even hiding assets under Claire's name. And the best part. Every single asset he demanded in the divorce. Every house, every car, every account he was trying to rip out of my hands. Was wrapped in his financial misconduct. Liabilities disguised as assets. Debts hidden under shiny surfaces. Accounts under investigation. A business drowning in tax audits he hadn't told anyone about, not even Claire. He thought he was taking wealth. He was actually taking the entire mess he created. The one thing I had quietly removed from our shared finances, the only thing I protected long before the divorce, was Jacob's trust fund. His future. Everything else. Let him have it. Let him take the house with the undisclosed lien he forgot to mention in his arrogance. Let him take the valuable car that needed a $7,000 repair. Let him take the savings account built on fraudulent transfers. Let him take the business under federal review. Let him take every burden he crafted with his own hands. He thought he was robbing me. But the truth. He was volunteering to drown in his own secrets. And the moment he signed to take it all, was the moment the real story would begin. As the court date drew closer, Michael transformed into a man I barely recognized. The arrogance he'd always carried now swelled into something bloated, uncontrollable. Pride mixed with entitlement, glued together by the belief that he had already won. He began showing up to pickups and drop-offs with Jacob dressed like he was walking into a magazine shoot, expensive suits, polished shoes, a watch worth more than my car. He wanted me to see the life he thought he was stepping into. A life with Claire. A life without me. One afternoon, as he handed Jacob his backpack, Michael flashed a smirk. "Hope you're prepared for the hearing," he said lightly. "I am," I replied. He frowned. My calm unnerved him. He expected fear, anger, desperation. But I gave him nothing. Claire stayed in the background, always nearby, always watching. She clung to his arm like a trophy he'd won. Her smile was thin, forced, as if she was trying too hard to look victorious. I wondered if she knew Michael had demanded custody of the assets but not the child. I wondered if she noticed how his income had been slowly declining. I wondered if she recognized the cracks forming beneath the foundation of the empire he claimed to have built. The night before the hearing, Daniel called. "Emily, this is your last chance," he said gently. "If you want to fight, I'm ready. We have enough evidence to bury him legally. We can prove infidelity, financial misconduct, abandonment. You'd walk away with everything." "I know," I said quietly. "Then why aren't you taking it?" I hesitated, then answered with the truth. Because what he thinks he's taking is exactly what he deserves. There was silence on the other end. Then Daniel's voice softened. "Whatever happens tomorrow, Emily, I'm on your side." I closed my eyes. Thank you. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet breathing of Jacob down the hall. Every sacrifice, every scar, every insult Michael had thrown at me. Tomorrow it would all shift. Tomorrow, he wouldn't just take the life he thought was mine. He would take the consequences, too. When morning finally arrived, the sky was grey, the kind of grey that feels heavy on the shoulders. I dressed in simple clothes, nothing flashy, nothing meant to impress. I wasn't there to put on a performance. As I drove to the courthouse, Jacob's hand-drawn picture, me holding his hand under a bright sun, slipped from the dashboard onto my lap. It steadied me. Because I wasn't walking into a battle. I was walking into the unveiling of truth. The hearing wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. Too bright, too quiet, too clean for the kind of emotional violence about to unfold. Rows of empty seats stretched behind us, the only witnesses to this final unraveling. I sat beside Daniel, hands folded in my lap, heartbeat steady. Ready. Michael entered moments later with Claire trailing behind him. She wore a fitted blazer and a polished smile, as though she believed she belonged here, as though she had earned the right to witness the dismantling of my life. Michael took his seat across from me, his confidence palpable. He looked at me the way someone looks at a puzzle they've already solved. The judge walked in. We all rose. And then it began. Case number 38 to 1142, the clerk announced. Carter versus Carter. Michael's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, the parties have agreed on a full settlement. She slid a thick document onto the judge's bench. Mrs. Carter has voluntarily signed over all marital assets to Mr. Carter. In exchange, she retains full custody of the minor child, Jacob Carter. The judge's eyebrows lifted. All of the assets? Yes, Your Honor, she replied smoothly. Everything. Michael leaned back slightly, the ghost of a grin on his lips, as if he were savoring a dessert he'd earned. The judge turned to Daniel. Mr. Collins, is this true? Your client is agreeing to this settlement willingly. Daniel's jaw tightened. He glanced at me one last time, searching my face, giving me a final chance to back out. I nodded. Yes, Your Honor, he said slowly. My client understands the terms fully. I could feel Michael's eyes on me, waiting, no, hoping, for a crack. A tremble. A sign of pain. I gave him nothing. Mrs. Carter, the judge said, do you acknowledge that by signing, you relinquish all rights to the marital residence, vehicles, bank accounts, retirement funds, investments, and any other shared property? I do, I said clearly. A murmur rippled through the courtroom staff. Even the stenographer paused for a heartbeat. The judge stared at me a moment longer. And you understand that this settlement is final? I do. Michael exhaled, satisfaction radiating from him like heat. Claire rested a hand on his arm, squeezing it gently, as though they were celebrating a small victory already. The judge signed the papers. With a single stroke of his pen, a 12-year marriage ended. Michael rose immediately, buttoning his suit jacket. Well, he said, almost cheerfully, looks like this chapter is finally closed. I stood quietly, gathering my purse. But as I did, I caught something, just for a split second. Michael's lawyer's smile faltered. She checked one page of the document. Then another. Her brows knitted. Her breath hitched. She whispered something urgently to Michael, tapping a line repeatedly with her manicured nail. He froze. The color drained from his face. His smile vanished. And there it was, the first spark of fear. The first hint that the victory he'd celebrated was nothing but a trap wrapped in his own signature. At first, I didn't fully register what was happening, only the sudden stiffness in Michael's posture, the way his eyes darted across the document like he was searching for an exit. His lawyer leaned closer, her voice low and urgent, each whisper landing like a strike. Michael, this isn't right, she muttered, flipping to the back section of the settlement. He frowned. What do you mean? She signed everything over. Yes, she hissed. But look, Look at the asset declarations. Daniel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, watching them with an expression that could only be described as patient amusement. He knew this moment was coming. He had waited for it. Michael snatched the document from his lawyer and scanned the pages. His face shifted rapidly, irritation, confusion, disbelief, before settling on something resembling panic. What is this?" he demanded, voice cracking. His lawyer pointed to a highlighted section. "There's a lien on the house. A large one. Why wasn't I told about this? Why didn't you know about this?" Of course I knew," he snapped, but his eyes screamed the truth. He didn't. "And here," she continued, tapping another part of the document, "these investment accounts. They're under federal review. And this business account, Michael, this is a liability, not an asset. Why is there a note about improper transfers? What exactly have you done?" Her voice sharpened with each word. Michael's face turned pale. I stood quietly, watching the cracks in his arrogance slowly widen. "These weren't in the documents you gave me," his lawyer said through clenched teeth. "You told me these were clean assets, stable assets." "They are," he sputtered. "They were. Claire and I." Claire flinched. "Don't drag me into this." Michael ran a hand through his hair, panic beginning to override his polished facade. "This isn't right. Emily must have changed something." Daniel chuckled under his breath. "Oh, trust me, she didn't change a thing. She simply didn't hide the truth like you did." Michael's lawyer rounded on him. "Did you know about these liabilities?" Daniel raised a brow. "Know about them. He created them." A thick, suffocating silence fell over the room. The judge glanced up from his notes, mildly annoyed. "Is there a problem?" Michael swallowed hard. "Your Honor, there appears to be some confusion with the settlement." His lawyer shook her head sharply, her eyes furious. "No confusion. You asked for everything. You accepted everything. And now, everything is yours." He opened his mouth, then closed it, choking on the realization. He had taken the bait. Signed the papers. Accepted the burden. Every lie he told, every unethical shortcut he took, every debt he hid, now belonged entirely, legally, permanently, to him. And there was nothing he could do to undo it. The courtroom door had barely closed behind the judge when Michael dropped into his chair, clutching the settlement papers like they were physically burning his hands. His lawyer snatched them back, flipping through page after page, her face tightening with each new discovery. "This can't be right," she muttered. "None of this makes sense." But it made perfect sense to me. Daniel finally stood, smoothing his tie. "Shall we enlighten Mr. Carter?" he asked politely, though the glint in his eyes was unmistakably sharp. Michael's panic cracked open. "Tell me what you did, Emily," he hissed. "Tell me right now." I met his eyes calmly, the way you look at someone who has already decided their own fate. "I didn't do anything," I said softly. "You did." Michael's lawyer slammed the packet closed. "Michael, the house isn't an asset. It's a liability. There's a second mortgage." She pointed to the numbers. "A massive second mortgage." "What second mortgage?" he yelled. "I didn't approve a second mortgage." Daniel raised a finger. "Actually, you did." Michael's head whipped toward him. "What?" "The documents weren't signed by Emily," Daniel continued. "They were signed by you. 2 years ago." Michael blinked, struggling to process. "I never." "Oh, you did," Daniel cut in. "During one of your business trips. You filed for a home equity line to cover deficits in your company accounts. You thought no one would notice." Claire's mouth dropped open. "You told me the business was thriving." Michael ignored her. "That's not possible. That bank would have called me." Daniel tapped the papers. "They did. Several times. But you were busy." The meaning was clear. Busy with Claire. Busy lying. Busy building a financial disaster he didn't even understand. His lawyer flipped another page. "And these investment accounts, Michael, they're frozen. All 3 of them." He jerked forward. Frozen. Why? Because, Daniel answered. The IRS is investigating irregular transfers. You've been moving money between personal and business accounts for years. It's all flagged. Claire stepped back, her perfectly polished face draining of color. Michael, what is he talking about? Michael sputtered, it's nothing serious, just routine reviewing. Routine. Daniel laughed. Michael, they launched a formal audit 6 months ago. They notified you by mail. Twice. Michael blinked rapidly. I didn't. I never saw anything. I folded my hands. Because they were mailed to the house. I saw them first. His mouth fell open. Why didn't you tell me? I held his gaze. Because you told me, repeatedly, that the finances were none of my concern. So I stayed out of it. Like you asked. Claire took a shaky breath. What about the business account? She whispered, almost afraid of the answer. Michael's lawyer turned to the final page. Her face darkened. Your business, she said slowly, is insolvent. Completely. You're thousands in debt. And based on these notes, you've been using company funds for personal expenses. She looked up sharply. That's a crime, Michael. That's fraud. Michael collapsed back into his chair, hands trembling. No, this isn't happening. But it was. Every asset, he demanded. Every bank account. Every investment. Every piece of property. Every business entity. Was infected with his own lies, debt, and illegal behavior. And now, he owned all of it. Emily, he whispered, voice cracking, you tricked me. I shook my head. No, Michael. I simply stopped protecting you. For the first time in our 12-year marriage, he understood what it meant to stand alone. With nothing but the consequences he created. It didn't take days. It didn't take weeks. It started that same afternoon, the moment Michael walked out of the courthouse clutching the settlement paperwork like a man holding the remains of a burning ship. Claire hurried after him, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. Michael! Wait, what does all of this mean? She demanded, breathless, mascara smudging at the corners of her eyes. He didn't answer. He just kept walking, fast, nearly tripping over himself as he pushed through the glass doors into the parking lot. I watched him from a distance. Watched his world tilt for the first time. Watched the man who believed he owned everything suddenly realize he'd inherited nothing but the rubble of his own selfishness. It was poetic. He fumbled for his keys, dropping them twice before finally unlocking his car. But before he could start the engine, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire body went rigid. Another buzz. Then another. And another. Emails. Alerts. Notifications. Dozens of them. All marked urgent. Claire leaned in through the passenger side window. Michael, what is it? He didn't answer. His breathing accelerated as he opened the first email. Then the second. Then the third. His business partner had sent 6 messages, all variations of the same frantic question. Why did the IRS freeze all our accounts? Why are clients pulling contracts? Why didn't you tell me about the audit? Then came a new message, from their largest client. Due to concerning financial activity and ongoing investigations, we are terminating all contracts effective immediately. Michael's lips went white. Claire read over his shoulder. Terminating. That's impossible. Michael, you said everything was fine. He snapped. It was. Until Z. No, she cut in sharply, stepping back from the car. This isn't her. This is you. You lied to me. You lied about everything. Michael opened the business account app on his phone. The numbers stared back at him. -$82,451.16. Negative. In the red. Drowning. He dropped the phone onto the passenger seat as though it had burned him. Claire stepped away entirely now, her voice trembling. I'm not going down with you. I can't. I didn't sign up for this. For the first time, Michael realized something terrifying. She wasn't staying. Claire walked off without another word, heels clicking away, leaving him alone in a parking lot full of strangers who weren't paying attention to his collapse. He buried his face in his hands, shaking. Meanwhile, I stepped into my own car, quiet, steady, free, and drove home to Jacob, who was waiting for dinner. By that evening, more dominoes fell. Michael's business partner filed an emergency complaint. The IRS sent a notice demanding immediate documentation. A credit card company froze 2 of his accounts. The bank denied access to the investment assets he now solely owned because they were under investigation. And the house. He received a letter from the lender. Foreclosure proceedings beginning in 30 days. Total amount due, $142,000. He had taken everything. And everything was on fire. It was exactly 9 days after the court hearing when Michael showed up at my doorstep. 9 days. That's all it took for his world to collapse. I had just finished helping Jacob with his homework when the doorbell rang. 3 frantic presses in a row, the kind someone makes when they're desperate. I opened the door slowly. Michael stood there, drenched from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes hollow and swollen like he hadn't slept in days. His shoulders sagged, his expensive suit clinging to him like a reminder of a life slipping through his fingers. "Emily," he whispered, voice cracking. I didn't invite him in. He swallowed hard. "Please. I need to talk." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. He entered timidly, like a stranger in a place he no longer belonged. Jacob peeked around the corner, confused. Michael forced a smile and waved. "Hey, buddy." Jacob offered a small wave before I gently sent him upstairs. When we were alone, Michael finally broke. "I lost everything," he said. "Everything, Emily." I didn't respond. I waited. My business partner, he's suing me. The company's finished. The IRS froze all accounts. He ran a hand through his soaked hair. "The house, the bank is taking it. I have nowhere to go." There it was. The moment he'd never imagined would come. He looked at me with eyes full of the same vulnerability he once showed when we first fell in love. Only this time, there was no sincerity behind it. Just desperation. "I made mistakes," he admitted. "Stupid mistakes. But we can fix this. You and me. We've always been a team." A team. The word tasted bitter. I shook my head. "There is no we anymore, Michael." He stepped toward me. "Please. I'm begging you. I need your help." "Help?" I repeated softly. "You took everything from me. Willingly. Proudly." He winced, the memory hitting him like a blow. I know I was cruel. I thought I was doing the right thing. Claire." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't blame her for your choices." His face crumbled. "I'm scared, Emily. I've never been this scared." For a moment, I simply looked at him, the man I once promised forever to, reduced to a trembling shadow of himself. "I warned you," I said quietly. "You were so focused on taking from me, you never checked what you were taking." His voice broke. "I'm sorry." The apology I waited 12 years for finally arrived. Too late. I opened the door and stepped aside, not to let him in, but to show him out. "Goodbye, Michael." He hesitated, eyes pleading, but the door clicked shut before he could say another word. For the first time in a long time, I felt nothing but peace. The morning after Michael showed up at my door, the world felt strangely quiet. Not empty, just peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, the weight on my chest was gone. I wasn't waking up to fear, or arguments, or the dread of what secret Michael might reveal next. I woke up to sunlight. To my son's laughter. To a house that finally felt like home again, our home, not a battlefield. I brewed coffee and sat by the window, watching Jacob play with his toy cars on the rug. He glanced up at me with a bright grin, the kind of smile children give only when they feel safe. "Mom, can we go to the park today?" "Of course," I said, smiling back. "Of course we can." Later that week, I began packing. Not because I was running from something, but because I was moving toward something new. Something that belonged entirely to me and Jacob. Daniel had helped me find a small apartment across town. Cozy, warm, with a balcony that overlooked a line of maple trees. It wasn't big or luxurious, but when I walked inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in ages. Hope. The day we moved in, Jacob raced from room to room, choosing the one with the slanted sunlight as his own. "Mom, look," he shouted. "I can see the park from here." I laughed, placing a stack of boxes on the counter. "I think this place is perfect." We unpacked slowly over the next few days. Pictures, blankets, books, things that had meaning. Things I chose to keep. Everything else I left behind, not out of bitterness, but out of freedom. I didn't need reminders of a life built on Michael's shifting lies. I returned to school, finally finishing the degree I had put on hold for a marriage that never deserved the sacrifice. My professors welcomed me with warmth, and for the first time in a long while, I looked in the mirror and saw someone I recognized. A woman who had survived. A woman rebuilding, brick by brick, day by day. A woman strong enough to rise again. As the weeks passed, I noticed something else. I laughed more. Slept better. Spent evenings reading instead of waiting for a husband who never came home on time. The past didn't vanish, but it stopped haunting me. Instead, it sat quietly behind me, like a chapter one had finally finished reading. One night, as Jacob snuggled beside me on the couch, he looked up and said something that tightened my throat. "I like this life better, Mom." I kissed his forehead. "Me too." And I meant it. For the first time in years. My life wasn't defined by what Michael took. It was defined by what I was building. For myself. For my son. For our future. It happened on a quiet Saturday morning, almost a year after the divorce. Jacob and I were walking out of the little French bakery near our new home, his hand in mine, a paper bag of warm croissants tucked under my arm, when I heard someone call my name. "Emily." I turned, and there he was. Michael. But not the Michael I once knew, the polished man in tailored suits, the one who walked with confidence and believed the world belonged to him. This Michael looked smaller, older, as if the weight of his own decisions had carved lines into his face. He stood alone near the parking lot, his clothes wrinkled, his posture slouched. The man who once demanded everything now looked like someone who had lost far more than material things. "Hi," I said softly. He swallowed, staring at Jacob first, healthy, happy, smiling, then at me. His eyes filled with something I recognized instantly. Regret. Not the shallow kind he used to throw at me when he wanted to avoid responsibility. This was real. Heavy. Unavoidable. "You look good," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Thank you." Jacob tugged my hand. "Mom, can we go to the park now?" "In a minute, sweetheart." Michael's eyes softened at the word sweetheart. For the briefest moment, I saw the father he could have been, the father he chose not to be. "I heard you finished your degree," he said quietly. "I did." "And you got a new job?" "Yes." He nodded slowly, as if he couldn't quite believe it. "You really rebuilt everything." I met his gaze steadily. "I had to." He looked down at the pavement. "I didn't think you would make it without the money. Or the house. Or," his voice cracked. "Or me." I took a slow breath. "That was your mistake. You thought you were my foundation. But you were the weight I had to step out from under." He closed his eyes, pained by the truth. "I'm really sorry, Emily," he whispered. "For everything. For hurting you. For being selfish. For destroying us." The apology came too late, but it still reached a place inside me that once loved him deeply. "I hope you find your way back," I said gently. "Not for me. For yourself." He looked up, eyes glistening. "Do you think we'll ever be friends again?" I gave a small, sad smile. Some endings don't come with new beginnings. Some just become lessons. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Jacob tugged my hand again, impatient. I squeezed it and nodded. "Goodbye, Michael," I said softly. He nodded, defeated. "Goodbye, Emily." Jacob and I walked away, toward the park, toward the sunlight, toward our new life. And as I glanced back one last time, I realized something. Michael hadn't just lost everything. He'd finally understood what everything really meant. And none of it had ever been material. It had been me. It had been our son. It had been the life he threw away. I turned back toward the future. Light. Open. Free. And I didn't look back again.